There is a parable many of us are familiar with, and it's found in the Gospel of Luke chapter 6. It's about two men who build houses for themselves. One builds on the rock, Christ, and one builds on the sand. About the one who built his life on the rock, listen to these words found in the Gospel of Luke chapter 6 verse 48. It says, "He is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundation on the rock. And when a flood arose, the stream broke against that house and could not shake it, because it had been well built." Well, we may know the story, but how many of us have thought about this? We don't know how much time had passed in verse 48 between on the rock and the word "and." Now, this man could have built that house, and years had passed before the massive storm came that destroyed the other man's home. Imagine that for a moment. What if he goes to all the trouble building his house? He selects the right property, he selects where to build it, especially on this solid bedrock. He digs deep. He does the hard work of laying the foundation, and he builds this home. His neighbor finished a long time ago and is out lounging in the sun, enjoying his time off. And here he is, slaving away building his home. Then it's done. Year after year then, it's a mild rainy season. The sun shines. He begins to even doubt himself. What was he thinking? Why did he go to all this trouble? His neighbor's home is still standing and his back isn't sore. Well, the man who built on the rock spent a lot of money on that foundation, and yet his neighbor had all that money to spend on himself. Think about this. There's no rain, there's no wind, there's no storm. Well, sometimes obedience is like that. You do all this work, you invest all this time and money, and meanwhile, your neighbor seems to be living it up and doing whatever they want. You're denying yourself, and they're indulging themselves. And it seems as though, in the end, it doesn't matter. Sometimes obedience means you sit there for days on end while the sun seems to shine on everyone, and you wonder why you went to all that trouble. But yes, the storms will come. And when they do, the rock of Jesus will not let you down. You know, this past week has been a storm. It has been a storm of injustice. And yet, we have the greatest resource on the topic of justice, and it's found in God's Word. God is just, and justice matters to God. God's Word addresses oppression, judges with fairness, and emboldens the believer to advocate for the vulnerable in an unjust world. We must seek justice in the lives of others because our God is a justice-seeking God. And He commands us to advocate for those who are made in His image. Now, Jesus took a stand for people where others didn't when the storms came. One of the most meaningful things that we can do is simply acknowledge that the injustices exist and empathize with those around us who are hurting. Now, last evening, the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference sponsored a webinar titled Fight for Floyd. Where do we go from here? If you missed last evening's webinar, the recording can be viewed on the conference's Facebook page. It's found at www.facebook.com/EPAUMC. Let us keep the Floyd family in prayer. Let us also pray without ceasing for our nation and for one another. Amen.